There's a lot going on right now in the world of guns, including a big Supreme Court case, new guns, and so we thought we'd go talk to the man, the myth, the legend, Tom Gresham. Gun Talk Nation is brought to you by Crimson Trace. Failure is not an option. Arms Corps, Safariland, We Save Lives, Remington Ammunition, and Springfield Armory. All right, welcome in to Gun Talk Nation. Today on Gun Talk Nation, it's the man, the myth, the legend, the great and powerful Tom Gresham. Welcome in.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain, right?
That's right. So, every once in a while, obviously we're talking every few days or whatever, but every once in a while we like to have you on to kind of update everybody of what's going on. So, there's a lot going on right now with gun rights and other stuff. So we'll probably meander a little bit, but I thought at least we could start there with new stuff coming up and maybe give us a little background in case people are not familiar of how we got there, and another Supreme Court case coming up for guns.
Yeah, we got a big Supreme Court case coming up being argued on November the 3rd. And actually, I would just say right before that, the immediate action item, if you happen to be in Virginia, is they got election for the governor, Terry McAuliffe, the former governor, Democrat, running to come back in and push his anti-gun stuff. What's interesting is that the gun ban lobby is actually funding efforts to basically attack the Republican, but they do it in a way to make it look like it's gun owners attacking him. Very sneaky stuff. Yeah, they're running ads on Facebook and all types of social media saying that the Republican Youngkin is not good on the Second Amendment. They're trying to get gun owners to say, oh, well, he wasn't supported by the NRA or he wasn't this. This is all enemy action. This is what they're doing trying to get people to not go to the polls and vote. And people are voting right now in Virginia. This is a big deal. If we could get the Republican elected there, a pro-gun Republican, it would change things in Virginia. You remember, Ryan, that Bloomberg came in a couple of years ago, dumped a bunch of money in there and flipped the legislature in Virginia. So, and I think between that and what's going on in Loudoun County, Virginia, with the school boards and all that, people are fed up. But once again, you have to start sharing the message and tell people, look, if you're seeing this stuff on Facebook or other places, this is enemy action. This is not true. People are buying this stuff to try to convince you not to go. And Virginia gun owners need to contact their friends and neighbors and tell them about this.
Well, Virginia, man, those folks in Virginia have been in this fight for several years now. We had a couple of years back when they had all of them show up for the lobby day, really about a lot of it being motivated by Second Amendment supporters. And we kind of said then, it's like, all right, guys, that's great, but don't lose this fire when it comes election time. And it's a good point because we're coming up on elections around the country, and a lot of times we get focused on presidential elections or some of those big ones. Right. But hey, whether it's your school board, your mayor, your state representatives, that all carries a huge weight. And a lot of times those people, when they get elected, you know how it is, it's hard to get them out. So they keep climbing the ranks of government ineptitude.
Well, we've been saying for years on the radio, go to your local school board meetings, go to your local city council meetings. Just sit there in the back, even if you don't have anything to say. If nothing else, at least it makes them really nervous. They wonder, who is that back there? Who are those folks sitting back there? And after a few weeks, they may start to ask you, why are you here? What are you doing? And you could make it a dinner date with your gun buddies and just go bug them each week. That'd be cool.
Why are you at our meeting? Well, it's the people's meeting, but okay.
Yes, that's right. Don't you know we're here to tell you how to live your lives? Be quiet, Jan.
Yeah, you're right. I was actually thinking I'm going to be out of town traveling on that Tuesday, election day, first Tuesday in November. So I'm going to have to vote absentee. Probably it'll open up next week here in Louisiana, I think.
Yeah, and a lot of states, of course, have early voting. And so that's taking place right now. People are voting right now. So it's not like we wait until the election. You need to be letting people know today, tomorrow. Call everybody you know and tell them this is what's going on. Oh, also, if you're in Virginia, be a part of the Virginia Citizens Defense League. VCDL is a really good group.
Yeah, they're doing great stuff, and really, they're in it. I mean, you think about Terry McAuliffe; he's a Clinton lackey, just horrible on a lot of things, but especially guns.
No, exactly right. And I love it when and they've got the video of him saying, basically, parents really don't have any role in the choice of what we teach your children.
Whew. I don't care
really?
if guns is your issue or not. I think any parent's going to get fired up to hear that.
Exactly. But you want to pivot to the Supreme Court? What's going on there?
Yeah, because we got a case coming up.
We do. It's the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association case, and it has the potential for being as big as the Heller decision from 2008. The Heller decision in Washington, D.C. said that we do have the right to own guns in our homes. It was a limited ruling, and the Supreme Court tends to do that, do limited rulings. What this does is this challenges New York's law that says if you want to carry a gun outside of your home, you have to apply for a permit. We're used to that. You get a carry permit. But their deal is, but you also have to show proper cause. That is their phrase, proper cause. Turns out, surprisingly, or not, that no one actually has proper cause unless you give them a lot of money, or you are a celebrity, or you are connected somehow. You are one of the elites. And now we have evidence of units of the licensing area of New York Police Department, NYPD, where they were being paid off with money, with Rolexes, and with other things. And that was the only way you were going to get your carry permit. So the question is, and this is the question really before the Supreme Court, the phrase keep and bear arms. You've said we can keep them, but now will you reaffirm that we can bear them, which means to carry them? There are 9 states, I believe, that are may issue, where the issuing authority gets to decide if you are worthy.
We may. We may.
Yourself.
We'll see.
Yeah,
we don't know.
I don't know. I mean,
what are the reasons that I should get one? Well, we don't have a list, but we'll just know it when we see it.
Pretty much. And it's weird because sometimes they'll say, well, do you carry a lot of cash? Well, no, I carry my children around in the car with me. Not good enough. You can protect cash, but not your children.
Right.
That's not right. So,
ooh, man.
But I think, well, remember what happened. I mean, no matter how you feel about Donald Trump, he gave us 3 new Supreme Court justices. And Mitch McConnell, let me just tell you, when they say, well, you can't possibly get a new Supreme Court justice through in 3 weeks, he says, hold my beer. Watch this.
Yes. That was, and this is going to be a long, long time because the folks that he put in are youthful as far as the Supreme Court goes. So
that's true.
It's going to be a good thing for a long time. Now, we have had, and thinking about the whole showing good cause, we've started to see a little bit of where it's basically a form. We're having some interesting bedfellows on this, right? It's kind of a form of, how would you call that?
It's elitism. It's discrimination.
Discrimination.
Remember, the whole idea of showing good cause traditionally has been, if you're black, you don't have good cause. I mean, that's where all that came from.
You have to be able to read to vote.
It's the whole, literacy test to vote. It's that background of we're going to keep those people, whoever those people were at the time, from having guns. And so coming out of Reconstruction, out of the Civil War, they said, well, what are we going to do to keep, these freed black people from being able to protect themselves and have guns? Oh, we'll have a permitting system. So the reality is concealed carry permits, at their core, they come from a racist background. And
it's true.
And so what's happened is now, it's not argued exactly that way. What they're saying now is the impact of these laws is disproportionate because young black men are the ones who are really being hammered by this. And they don't have any way to get a license to carry a gun, even though they may be good people and everything else, but they can't do that. And so back to your point, we're getting some really interesting political bedfellows in this, of people who say, well, forget guns, this is just discriminatory. Yeah. And the impact on minorities and people of color is way disproportionate. And so some of the amicus briefs are really interesting to read. I have a really good feeling about this case. I'm pretty sure we're going to win it, but what we don't know is what does win mean? discovered something this past week. I talked about it on the radio. Justice Clarence Thomas is the senior justice on the Supreme Court now. He has for decades, he's 30 years on the bench in the Supreme Court. He's been begging for Second Amendment cases and got really ticked off a couple of years ago, or actually last year, when they turned down 10 different Supreme Court or Second Amendment cases. So if we got him to write the decision, I think we'd get a decision that's very much like Heller, very strong like Scalia wrote it. But I discovered something. Chief Justice Roberts, of course, is wishy-washy, and he's not real good on Second Amendment. He's not really conservative at all. If the Chief Justice agrees with the decision, say we get a positive decision, and the Chief Justice signs on as part of that, he can assign who gets to write the decision, which means he could assign it to somebody who is not as strong as Clarence Thomas. If, however, he is on the dissent side, he has no play in who writes the decision.
Wow. So that's an interesting one. And let's talk about a little bit more of that when we come right back. ATN Optics is really changing the game in the world of optics. These are smart optics that are smarter than me and you, probably. Thermal, night vision, binos, handheld stuff, gun-mounted stuff. So a lot of different options. They actually just opened up a new storefront in Grapevine Mills Mall in Texas. That's in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So if you want to actually see them in person, get your hands on them, it's a great way to stop by and check out the new ATN store there in Grapevine Mills Mall. They also have an upgrade program where you can upgrade from your old X-Sight to the new X-Sight models. Full warranties included, free shipping. Check them out, atncorp.com/upgrade program. Also, Crossbreed holsters for all types of carry. They have the Super Tuck, the Mini Tuck that's a smaller, the Reckoning, the Snap Slide, belly bands, and gun belts. Most days I am wearing a Crossbreed holsters gun belt because they're strong, they're thick, they make it comfortable to carry all day, every day. Most are handmade in the USA and they offer a lifetime warranty. Check them out, crossbreedholsters.com. Also, Armscore Rock Island Armory. They have the STK-100. This is a different pistol for them. They're known for being that 1911 gun maker, and they took some of the things they like about 1911s and they put it into this gun. Optics ready slide, an extended beaver tail. That sound familiar? 1911, folks. It's 9mm, 17 round capacity, and it's a solid aluminum frame. And if you shoot an aluminum frame gun, it has a different feel to it. It's very controllable. It's very nice. Check them out, armscore.com. Okay, so we could have a 6-3 decision where maybe the Chief Justice gets to write the decision, but maybe almost perhaps better if you almost had a 5-4, and then you have Clarence Thomas writing the decision.
Absolutely. I think that's better. I think Roberts would either write it himself, more than likely.
And water it down, probably.
Water it down, exactly. Or if the other justices say, we're just not going to agree to that, then maybe he ends up dissenting. And if that happens, then Clarence Thomas writes it. And I think we get a monumental case, not nearly as narrowly written, and something that's more expansive to Second Amendment rights. Now, the case is going to be argued on November the 3rd. I would love to listen to it, but I'll be in deer camp. Can't do that. So, hey, deer camp takes precedence. That's right. I'm literally in the middle of nowhere. There'll be no cell phone service, thank God. But you can go and listen to the arguments later in the day. They record them, and then they're available online. And usually it's 30 to 45 minutes, maybe an hour is all they get.
Yeah.
So it's not difficult to listen to. And you're always taking a chance when you say, I can listen to this and tell which way they're going to go. But a lot of times you can kind of get a sense from the questions from the justices of how they're feeling about the whole thing.
Well,
so
a lot of times it is fascinating. I mean, to read the decisions and also listen to the arguments, I mean, everyone, whether you agree with the people there or not, they're all brilliant. And what's also kind of funny is typically the people who are the lawyers, the attorneys arguing for the cases in the Supreme Court, they're pretty squared away. But a lot of times they're given maybe a minute maybe 2 to start presenting, and then they're interrupted by the justices right off the bat of like, wait a minute, I got a question. Because they already kind of know the questions they're going to ask, I assume.
Right. And of course, the justices have read all the arguments, all the briefs, and every gun control group and every pro-gun group has submitted amicus briefs, friends of the court, pro or con, whatever. So they've read all this. They know all the arguments. And you're right. A lot of times the lawyer starts talking, and like within 20 seconds, one of the justices interrupts and goes, yeah, okay, yeah, but, and now we're off to the races. And now you're just taking incoming, fastballs all the time.
Who's, do we know who is arguing for, is this New York Rifle and Pistol?
I don't know who the attorney is who's doing that. I should know, but I just don't remember offhand.
Okay.
So, that's something we could look up as well.
It'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, and we've had some big cases. We've had Heller, and you said, okay, and that's what they want to do. They want to limit the scope. They say, okay, yes, you can keep it, but that's all we're going to say.
Right, exactly.
We've had McDonald, which was another big one. We've had, and now this one, where could it go?
Well,
and how does it affect other things down the road?
Sure, good point. Keep and bear arms. If they say, okay, bear arms means that it is a constitutional right for you to be able to carry a gun. Certainly you could, I think more than likely we'll do away with the may issue provisions. It's less likely that they do away with the idea of carry permits altogether, although one could say, well, gee, if you have the right, then you shouldn't have to say, Mother, may I, and raise your hand and please, may I ask permission to exercise my constitutional right.
Yeah.
Of course, all of this happens in the environment of 21 states now being constitutional carry, where anybody who is not prohibited and who is usually 21 years old or older can carry a gun. And I think I added that up. It's like 60 or 65 million people in those states now could legally carry a gun without a permit. That's a lot of people. And that constitutional carry movement continues to move from state to state, very much like 25 years ago, we saw concealed carry movement.
Let's talk about that for a minute, because I've always kind of argued just on statistics that we don't have to wonder what if. We have lots of different sample sizes. What if about concealed carry permits? We have millions of people doing it. We kind of know what it's going to be. Now we've got a really large sample size of constitutional carry. I haven't heard much in the way of all of a sudden Texas gets it or Missouri gets it or whatever, and all of a sudden there's all these problems.
Yeah, it's a secret crime wave is what it is.
Yeah.
You're right. It's always interesting. And the funny part is, you're right, we have seen this before. Back 25, 30 years ago, when Florida started the whole concealed carry movement, and state after state got concealed carry. And typically the news media would say, oh, we'll have blood in the streets, all that. And then a year or two later, there'd be a little story on like page B3 of the newspaper that said, Sheriff Joe Blow says that he's very surprised that we've had actually no increase in crime whatsoever as a result of the concealed carry laws. We're seeing the exact same thing, history repeating itself with constitutional carry, where, they say this is going to be terrible, blah, 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 all the stuff they predict, and, dogs and cats living together. And then a year or two later, they go, well, actually nothing happened. And of course, you and I talk about it. We said, the bad guys are not waiting for legal permission to carry guns to commit crime. So their activity is not going to change. Bad guys are already bad. They're not waiting for a permission slip to do that. And adversely, the good guys are not going to change their behavior either. The good guys are not going to suddenly become bad guys because now I can carry a gun.
Right.
Now, would I like for people to get training? Yeah, I would, but I don't want the government to mandate that, because mandated training becomes mandated impossible training.
We've seen that. Illinois, Chicago has done that as well. They say, okay, well, if you want to own a gun, you've got to go to 16 hours.
Yeah, 2 days worth of class. And, oh, yeah, we're not going to allow the classes to be taught here. And like in Chicago, they say, and we're going to outlaw shooting ranges in our town. So you can't do that. And we had to challenge that in court. I worked with the Second Amendment Foundation. We challenged that and got that turned around.
Yeah. It's, you know, I think it's hard for anyone to argue that there's going to be a problem with constitutional carry at this point. I just don't see how you could, well, this could happen or that could happen. Well, why are we saying could? If it's it's a sample size of 65 million citizens who can currently just start carrying a gun.
I used the analogy. It's like two old guys sitting there on the porch and they're arguing about how long that board is over there. And they've been arguing for years about how long the board is. And somebody said, well, you know, you could just go over there and measure it. We have the stats here. We have the history. We know what is, not what might be. There's no reason to do this what if thing.
We still run into that. But the problem is you have state representatives and just these politicians who know nothing about guns, concealed carry, self-protection, any of that, but they have very strong opinions about it. And they want to pass or not pass laws and infringe on people's rights to be able to do so because they hold this like, what if? I mean, I remember you and I sitting in a state hearing on talking about allowing, not requiring, but allowing teachers to carry guns in schools. Mm-hmm. And they literally was a politician that said, what, are you going to have the teacher up at the front of the class with a textbook in one hand and a gun in the other? I mean, you want to just stand up and go, are you serious? Is that a serious question? You think that's how this is going to work?
Remember, and this is an important thing to remember for everybody, there is no power in saying yes. Politicians only get power, bureaucrats and administrators only get power by saying no. And they want to preserve that power. It's really their power they're trying to protect. And so only by saying no and then possibly allowing a few through the gate, by allowing them through if you are deemed worthy, that's the way they keep their power.
They really like that word allow. We're going to allow you to do this or allow you to do that. And you're going, wait a minute, I thought I was in a free country. It's a free person.
Well, actually, when you think about it, it is two different ways of thinking. It's a great point. There's a group of people who thinks that the government allows things. And then there are those of us like me and like you who say, no, actually, the government doesn't allow anything. The government has the power to prohibit, but it doesn't allow. So we start off with the idea that everything is okay unless prohibited.
Yeah.
They start off with everything is not allowed unless specifically allowed and, you know, lined out by the government. It's a very different way of thinking. And it's either it's freedom or totalitarianism. And those who say, well, the government doesn't allow, and we all should stop using that word, by the way, because a lot of us do that. Well, they don't allow this. I'm sorry, no. The government doesn't get to allow anything. They can prohibit things, but we want to reduce the number of prohibitions they have.
Yeah. I got a few more companies to thank, and then we'll talk some fun guns. Safariland is known for providing really quality gear for law enforcement and military, but you can own it too, okay? It's not just for the pros, if you will. And they have a code for Gun Talk Nation listeners. Enter code GUNTALK20Q4 for 20% off at safariland.com. Save 20%. That's good. They have holsters, they have Ear Pro, they have a bunch of other stuff. And one of the ones that's really popular right now is the 575 IWB holster, perfect for concealed carry. It's actually designed to fit multiple firearms in that one holster. It's optics capable and, you know, pretty versatile option for you. So check it out, safariland.com. Also, Smith & Wesson, their big new product is the M&P 12 Bullpup Shotgun. This is a game changer. They've never done something like this there. 2 mag tubes, ambi safety selector, removable Picatinny rail, interchangeable M&P palm swell grips. Those are really nice. It can hold 20 mini shells or a combination of 2 3/4 inch, 3-inch magnums and mini shell loads. Gives you a lot of options. You can find out more, smith-wesson.com/MP12. So I wanted to switch gears, talk about just fun gun stuff, because there's new guns out. I know you're getting ready for deer season. I'm heading up for a pheasant hunt here in the next week or so. So a lot going on. And I was trying to decide what gun to take on a pheasant hunt. And KJ and I were having this discussion this morning. I said, well, we've got this Benelli Super Black Eagle 3 shotgun, 12 gauge shotgun. I took it out to the range the other day and shot it real well. Really like it. And I'm going, in my mind, I think of it as a duck gun. I mean, obviously a 12 gauge shotgun, you can shoot pheasants with it. It doesn't matter what it is, but.
Well, and that Benelli will shoot light loads just as well as it'll shoot the Magnum loads.
Right.
So you have the choice there, but don't forget, it kind of depends. Now, I know where you're going, and you're going to have a kind of a combination of wild birds and planted birds. So you may have some birds that are close up, but you may have some wild ones hanging out there. Not a bad idea to actually have two different loads in your vest. If you say, okay, if they're getting up close today, I'll use these lighter loads. But if we're starting to get some really wild birds, switch to a heavier load and probably switch to a little bit larger shot size.
That's a good point. I also, and I'm leaning towards taking an over and under. And typically how I set up an over and under is two different chokes. So the first barrel is a little bit more wide open. Second barrel might be more of like a modified. Just if you assume that the bird is flying away as you're shooting, they're getting further on that second shot.
Yeah, exactly. And if you wanted to go even further, there is a 3-barrel shotgun.
This is true. Yes.
You have all the chokes.
Yeah. Have 3 different chokes. We can overthink this until I'm, blue in the face.
There was, I can't remember the name of it. You've heard of the poly choke. You turn the choke, right? I can't remember who made it, but somebody had a choke that would change the choke with each shot automatically.
No.
Oh, yes. Each shot, it would crank down and get tighter and tighter. The idea being that the bird's flying away. So, you start improved, modified, full as you shoot.
We in the outdoor world, we come up with some products, man. I tell you what, and we've seen it for hunting, for shooting, for fishing, where you go, woo, there's been some weird ones over the years. We probably need to do a show of cataloging our favorite weird products over the years that didn't quite make it. There's one a couple of years ago that arrived at the office called the Handy Racker. And it was in case you had a hard time racking your semi-auto pistol, you attached this thing to the slide and made it easier to rack. But it was just, we all kind of chuckled because we're like, I mean, you just practice, just learn a new technique or get a different gun. There's a lot of options besides attaching this little contraption to your gun.
Well, history is replete with examples of trying to come up with technology to solve what really is a training problem.
Yes.
And, it's like, we will buy this thing, we'll invent this thing. You go, yeah, well, how about if we just teach people to be better? There's a technique for racking a pistol. And people say, well, so-and-so is just not strong enough. That's possible. Okay, that's possible. But a lot of times you can solve that by just with good technique. Bring it back in close to the body, push hard with one hand, rack back with the other, try to rip the slide all the way off, the frame, throw it over your shoulder with that violent ripping motion. And then if you can't do that, then you got the Shield EZ system with the light racking pistol, which works really well.
And Ruger has one as well that it's kind of a light rack system. And so, yeah, you could do that. I mean, like you said, there are people who truly have a hard time. Maybe they have arthritis in their hands or whatever it may be. Maybe a revolver, maybe in an extreme case, I remember hearing about the tip-up barrel, like was it the Bearcat, Berettas or whatever, could be an option for you. But absolutely. I think most people, and you kind of alluded to it, they want to baby the gun. And it's like, you can't hurt the gun. I promise. It's a semi-auto. It slams harder back and forth than you're going to be able to do on it anyway. It reminds me of when, I play drums and I'd be at a gig and occasionally someone either like a private party, hey, can I jam out on your drums? Or a kid wants to come and the parent's like, is it okay? Is he going to hurt the drums? I'm like, he can't hurt the drums. It's impossible to hurt the drums. They are made to be hit.
Yeah. He's not going to hit him any harder than you've been hitting.
No, he's not going to hit it harder than me.
Okay, great story. I don't know if you remember this. We were out at the range very early on and doing our videos. We had Lori with us, and we had a semi-automatic, and I was showing her something, and I said, look, you really want to rack it hard. I said, you don't want to, take it easy with this thing because, that's just how you get hurt. And so I was actually demonstrating if you work the slide slowly and then try to ease it back. And I was trying to demonstrate that this is a problem. Don't do it that way. And in the process of doing that, I pinched my hand, and on camera, I start bleeding all over the gun.
Yep.
Going,
I remember this. Yeah,
you're like, not how you do this.
The problem is, if you go slow, you might even pinch yourself. Oh, ow! Oh God, I'm bleeding over the whole gun. Yeah, I remember that.
It's like, okay, that's why you don't do that. See that exactly.
It is funny because we've run into that over the years many times when we're trying to demonstrate the wrong way and the thing that you're not supposed to do. And either you could hurt yourself, or you have a hard time doing it the wrong way because you're trying to do it the right way all the time. I had an example that we did not end up showing, but I was trying to dramatically show if you hold onto the gun lightly, you can induce a malfunction. If you're not really gripping it and pushing back on a semi-auto pistol. And I held it so lightly that with one hand that it flew out of my hand when it shot. Now it malfunctioned. It fell to the ground. It couldn't have gone off. It was like stovepiped. But I admit, I'm telling the story on myself. I was like, whoa, okay. I need to hold it slightly a little bit more grippy. Yeah. But
you can't hold it light enough to where it actually will come right out of your hand.
It'll fly out of your hand. But I mean, I think that's just, like you said, it's a training issue. Hold on to the gun tight, rack it as hard as you can, like you're trying to rip the slide off the gun, and you won't rip it off. I promise.
No. They're made pretty tough. I've been having a bunch of fun shooting our GT25, the 10 millimeter pistol.
I tell you, we are getting so many people with range reports. They're getting them in, they're shooting them, they're impressed.
It's been really interesting because, I mean, obviously we have this pride of we've come up with this concept and we spec'd it out. And it's a beautiful pistol. It's really well made and all that, and I love that. But the reports that are coming in are way beyond that, where people just say, this is the best gun I've ever had. This is the best trigger I've ever had. I particularly like the one where the guy said, I got it in. I was so excited. I took it out. We went to the range. He's got a property where he can shoot. Took my son out, took my wife out. She shot it. And she's got experience and all, but she really likes revolvers. And she shot it for a while. She said, I really like this. She shot it a little bit more. And then she went inside. And what's she doing inside? She went online and went to Dury's Guns and ordered her own. So she bought her own.
Now they've got 2.
1911. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and you're hearing that from people who, I guess I would kind of call them 1911 snobs, like in a nice way, in an affectionate way. People who go, I've carried, and you name all the good ones, and they're good ones. I mean, Wilson Combat, Ed Brown, and some of these ones that are known for being really high dollar, that are in the $3,000-$4,000 1911 range, and they're going, this is just as good, if not better, than some of the fancy ones I've done. I think there's something that the Ruger Custom Shop, they just do a fantastic job of putting together these guns. And like you kind of talked about it on the air, the Ruger Custom Shop is like this autonomous region of Ruger. They're allowed to do their skunk work thing, and they're not beholden to say, we have to use this supplier or this part or whatever. They just are allowed to go do and say, this is what we want to build. This is what's going to be good. And I think that's one of the reasons people are so impressed with the gun.
Well, of course, that's what we did. We went through and, even through the sights, there's a different front sight than a back sight. It's not a set. I liked that front sight, but I liked this rear sight. So we spec'd those two together. We got the tritium on the front sight, but with that glow ring around it, so you can really pick it up. Got an adjustable rear sight, even though it's a low mount Novak sight. We spec'd out different internal parts. We went to Cylinder and Slide for the forged parts for the internals, just because I like those better. I mean, it's not like the Rugers are bad. I like the Rugers the way they come, but said, if you're going to get to spec one out, and you actually do get to pick the parts, different hammer, different trigger, different barrel bushing, we basically just made it the way you said, okay, if you wanted to make what you wanted completely, what would you spec it out with? So I made the list, and I didn't know how much we'd get of it. We got it all. It was pretty cool.
So I feel like we've been talking about it a lot because it's our baby that we launched. But
Right.
if you haven't heard about it yet, it's the GT25. You can go on guntalk.com and look up the GT25. You can go on DurysGuns.com, DURYS, Dury's Guns. And they're the dealer that's working with us on this. But it's a 1911 from the Ruger Custom Shop. It is commander size, right?
Right. 4.5 or 4.25 inch barrel. Yep.
4.25, and it's in 10 millimeter. But it's got the G10 grips. It's got a lot of customizations, and it's a limited run, so you can buy one, but for a limited time.
To that point, and this is inside baseball. I haven't even shared this with you. Just found out yesterday, and we said, look, we're not going to make any more than 500. That's our limit.
Right.
500 is the limit. But we're not going to necessarily make 500 either. So we have up to. We have our initial order in, and we're getting at the end of our initial order now. We've sold a bunch of these. And frankly, we're at the point where we're going to say, are we going to order more? Are we going to take it to 500? Or are we going to stop?
Right.
And I don't know yet. That may be decided in the next couple of days. I would say if somebody is interested in this, you might want to get your order in right now, because we're going to be making the call in the next week or so as to whether to go ahead and run this all the way up to 500 or stop somewhere short of that. And if that happens, when they're gone, they're gone.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a special gun. It's a custom gun. There aren't very many out there, and it's if you ever wanted to carry a 1911 that's in 10 millimeter.
You had the same reaction when you first shot it that everybody else has, which is, okay, it's a commander size, it's 10 millimeter, it's powerful. I'm getting ready for this thing to really kick, and you shoot.
Absolutely.
You go, wow, that was kind of nothing. That was
absolutely.
Really cool.
I consciously said, okay, really grip on this sucker, Ryan, and really get ready for it. And then you shoot it, go, okay, that wasn't bad. Shoot again. All right, let me do some double taps. Boom, boom, just right on. Boom, 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 boom. And going, it's a 10. And it's like shooting, almost like shooting a 9. I mean, it may be a slightly more, but it's very controllable.
It's about like a 45.
It is.
It really is.
Absolutely.
Just about like a 45.
If you're interested, you ought to check that one out. So anything that our listeners need to do leading up to this Supreme Court case, or is it just kind of like a tune in and see what happens?
It really is a tune in. Everything's in motion. There's nothing else for us to do. If you want to be a participant in this kind of thing, I would say a couple of groups you might want to join, at least make donations to. The Second Amendment Foundation is behind a lot of these lawsuits, and the Firearms Policy Coalition is doing some really good work as well. And they often are working together. The two of those together. So if you're saying, I really want more of this, I want to push this in the courts, I want to regain our gun rights, I would say the Second Amendment Foundation and FPC.
All right, perfect. You got your marching orders, everybody. That's it for us. We'll see you next time on Gun Talk Nation.